Hello BookTube. I have a Wednesday Megastuff video for you here, and despite the fact that Wednesday is New Comic Book Day, and despite the fact that there was a new issue of Legion of Superheroes today, I don't have any comics to start off this Wednesday Megastuff video because I didn't go to the comic shop. It's still not on my route. Even though I had a route imposed on me today, it still wasn't the right kind of route. Now, instead, we'll start off in the way that we tend to do with babies, because I put out a call for your Shakespeares. Send me pictures of your Shakespeare. That really could have been send me pictures of your books, just in general, especially those of you who don't have BookTube channels where I don't see your books every day. And I added as a note, you might want to send pictures of your pets while you're at it, and quite a few of you have done that, and it's been wonderful, and that has expanded to pictures, for instance, like in this case, a picture of a pet with no Shakespeare. just an adorable dog who's totally washed out now, because there we go. Just an adorable dog. And of course the backsliding has continued, because in addition to adorable dogs, we also have people sending pictures of their cats. And I don't know what it is with you people, but I seem to be getting only pictures of black cats, which is kind of alarming. This is little Mina. She's not with Shakespeare, she's with Dune. Rescued off the streets, now as comfortable as a pasha in his harem. And then there's this duo. I honestly don't know which person in this duo is more terrifying. On the one hand, in this picture, one of these intergalactic terror lords is saying, "Exterminate," and the other one is saying, "Sleep until 4." I don't know which is worse. But those are some baby parades today. I don't have, also in addition to no comic books, I also don't have any mailboy updates. I haven't seen him yet today. Maybe he takes a day off to play Nintendo all day long and sit on mounds and mounds of dirty laundry. Who knows? It will happen. It will absolutely happen. But I do have a Frida anecdote. Because the Bean and I were out for a walk earlier today, and we encountered a boy dog. Now, Frida doesn't really care about other dogs. She's crazy about humans. She wants to meet and greet all humans. She doesn't really care about other dogs as long as they do everything that she says and don't move without her permission, which can be a little rough sailing with some dogs. But this particular dog evoked a totally different reaction in her because he was even smaller than she is. He was half her size. It was a Chihuahua. And not only was he absolutely tiny, I mean literally half her weight. He couldn't have been any more than 5 pounds. But he was also extremely meek and deferential right from the beginning. He didn't need her to say a word. Didn't need her to bawl him out the way she does the German Shepherds and Doberman Pinschers on our route. And it was the first time I've ever seen this dog, and they were quite friendly with each other. They hit it off. They started to fake play. I never see Frida play with dogs. She plays with humans all the time, but with dogs, I've almost never seen it. So I'm hoping that I encounter that little boy again. I'd like to meet him without Frida. I'd never seen his owners in the neighborhood before. I don't know if they're just visiting or if they're moving in. I have no idea. Once upon a time, now would be the time when the streets would be just crammed with moving vans. There wouldn't be one to be had for love or money anywhere in Boston. And there would be hundreds of new students in this general area moving in to apartments and condos and whatnot. I've seen one of those so far in the last week. One gruff, middle-aged old guy moving in 2 absolutely gorgeous 18-year-old boys to an apartment right down the street. And they're obviously going to, at least partially, to some sort of in-person classes. I don't know for how long, because the man and the boys weren't wearing masks, so they're, I don't know how long that's going to last. I don't know how much, I honestly don't know. When I see all these people walking around Massachusetts, greater Boston, with no masks on, I always wonder, what are you doing? Not in the broader sense. In the broader sense, I know what you're doing. You're risking everyone's life around you because you effing feel like it. No, I mean in the more specific sense. What specifically are you doing when you're walking around? There isn't any place that you could possibly go to that you'd be walking to. There isn't any place you could possibly go to. No business, no public office, no nothing that won't require you to wear a mask the minute you step in the door. They won't let you in if you're not wearing one. You'll make the nightly news. So, this Jordan Peterson-esque, no one's going to infringe on my personal liberty bull hooky. It has to stop at the doorway of anywhere where you would go. You can't go for a coffee. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't get takeout. You can't go to the DMV. You can't go to the library. You can't go to pretty much anybody else's apartment. You can't go to any shop, any mall, nothing like that without having a mask. So I don't know where these people are going. Maybe they're just walking up and down the street to make some sort of libertarian point. But one way or the other, that father and those two boys were the only people I saw moving in. That is kind of strange. And it makes me wonder what Boston's economy is going to do if 200,000 students don't show up in the fall. There are whole stores that are dependent on that influx of students at the beginning of the fall semester, at the beginning of the spring semester, a little bit at the beginning of the summer semester, and then all over again the next fall. There are whole stores that depend on that business, especially tobacco stores, because all students are roasting addicts, and the minute their parents leave town, that's the first thing they do. They do that before they go grocery shopping. There are stores all over the greater Boston area that just effectively board themselves up when the students are out of town. And when the students are in town, all they sell are nicotine products, and they do it all day long, a booming business all day long. Shops like that, I don't know, like that, all of the clubs on Lansdowne Street, what are these places going to do if no students are here anymore? And certainly they aren't. I mean, you just have to see, you just have to walk around and see that they aren't here. And anywhere like the number, now is the week when I would suddenly be complaining to everybody that the city's drug addict quotient was going up by 1,000%, and its collective IQ was going down by 1,000%. And as wonderful as that tried and true comedy routine is, I'm not getting a chance to use it because there is no influx of students yet. Maybe it'll happen next week. I haven't checked to see how many of Boston's colleges and universities are doing virtual learning. I know that Harvard is offering some in-person learning. I don't see how that's going to work, but I understand it. I was going to say I don't know why schools would do it. I do actually know why they would do it, at least on one level, because the tuitions are an enormous part of their operating budget, and because they've got all these classrooms that they need to use. But on another level, if a student can register for classes, attend them, do homework, participate in discussions, take midterms and finals, and get a grade, all from the safety of their own home, why would they travel across the country or across the world to come to Harvard or BC or BU or anything like that? I don't know. I don't know how it's going to work. It's going to be fascinating to watch. But my broader point is that I had an appointment today. I was out and about today, and it wasn't my usual bitterly early morning appointment. So I didn't go to the Brattle Bookshop because I wasn't anywhere near it. But I did still want to sort of treat myself when it was over. So I went to Barnes & Noble. I went to the only big retail bookstore left in Boston. A bookstore where I used to work. For a few years I worked there at the Barnes & Noble at the Prudential Center. It's a big glass and steel tower mall, multi-layers, multi-levels, with the more expensive and exclusive shops on the higher levels, and all of it it's an architectural marvel. When you walk inside the Prudential Center, it's incredible. Because the floors there's no ceilings. The ceilings are open staircases that just climb up and up towards skylights far in the distance, so that the peons on the first floor can look up at the more exclusive shops up above. And it was empty. All the layers just empty and echoed. There were barely any people in there. But there is a bookstore. There is a Barnes & Noble in there. And when the old Barnes & Noble in Downtown Crossing closed abruptly, the company moved all of us over to the one at the Pru and just expanded its hours, expanded its budget completely. They actually did right by all of those employees and said, as many of you as want to continue will without a single lost hour. I don't think any retail company would do that today. I'm certain that Barnes & Noble would not. But we all moved over from our ratty old rat trap of a store. We all moved over to this state-of-the-art new store. And I worked there for a while, and some of that time was fun. I abandoned the information desk. The information desk, the old wood information desk at the old store downtown had been my bailiwick. That was what I did. But I quickly noticed at the new store, the questions weren't the same. There wasn't any traffic to the information desk, whereas there was always a line at the registers to buy things. So I trained on the registers and got to know how to do them, and spent a lot of time there talking with customers on their way out the door, making last-minute recommendations, that sort of thing. I also sold Nooks, the Barnes & Noble electronic reading device, from its very beginning, its first 2 iterations, all the way to some of the very later ones before I finally retired. It's kind of strange. Everybody commented on it that I knew nothing at all about anything like complex technology or electronics, and yet I was selling these things. And I was very good at it. I sold quite a few of them. And I always try to tell people, it's because you don't need to know. I can tell a customer what the reading experience is like on one of these devices because I took them home and used them as reading devices. I can tell them what that's like, and I tell them how it works. If they want me to go into megahertz and doohickeys and framostats, I'll just admit to them that I don't know that. I don't have any idea how the electronics works here. And there were a couple of times with a couple of particular customers where, in addition to immediately admitting that, I then said the kind of thing that I was pretty much the only one in the store who could get away with saying, where you would get some holster measuring tech dude who would come in. He wasn't intending to buy a device anyway. He just wanted to best somebody with tech specs. And I could spot one of those people a mile away. I could read customers like an x-ray. And with those customers, I would say, well, I don't have any idea how the internal specs of this thing work, and you also aren't interested in that. You're just trying to be a dick. And I was the only customer who could say that kind of thing to a customer. I was the only employee who could say that and not get fired. And every time I did it, I said that, I think, 3 or 4 times, 3 or 4 different customers. Each time the customer took a step back, blinked, mistakenly thought they must be dealing with the owner of the store or the manager of the store, the only person they could imagine would say such a thing and get away with it, and then immediately admitted it. And as soon as they were confronted with what they were doing, they admitted it. And we either changed the subject completely, or we talked about what really did interest them. In no case were those a-holes interested in buying an electronic reader. It's in every single case, their wife was across the way at another store, and they were just amusing themselves by trying to one-up some wage slave. I don't know, one way or another. I often wanted to say, I was always nice about it once I confronted them with what they were doing. But I always wanted to say, you're at a distinct advantage here. You know exactly how this software works. You know all sorts of details about it that I don't know, even though I'm the guy here selling them. And if you want to experience the reverse of that, let's you and I take a stroll through the books in the back of the shop, but I never did. Because what's the point? I'm not that kind of person. So I wouldn't do it to them, even though they did it to me. But I went to that Barnes & Noble. I haven't worked there in a while. And thanks to the pandemic, all of the young members of the staff that I was starting to get to know, they're all gone, long gone. But I went in anyway. This particular Barnes & Noble doesn't particularly seem to care so much about some essential things, or maybe they're just way behind the 8 ball when it comes to stock, because they haven't put out much new stuff since they reopened, which was 2 months ago. So it's possible to walk through the magazine section, for instance, the new release sections of some genres, and find the same books that were there in early March of this year. It's now almost September, so that's kind of unbelievable. And it also effectively removes the main reason why I would go into such a store. It was always new releases. I was never in a million years would I go into a Barnes & Noble and hunt around in backstock to pay $15 for a paperback. But new releases will often break down my resistance. So I prowled all around the store as much as I had time for, as much as I was up for. And I found a bunch of things that some of them were whimsy buys. I got 2 magazines. I got the New Atlantic. How Did It Come to This is the stark white cover. And I believe How Did It Come to This refers to Why the Virus Won by Ed Yong, who's a talented writer, and we'll see. I imagine this will be fairly old news, but we'll see. Unfortunately, the other thing that's featured on the cover is The Power of American Denial by Ibram X. Kendi. And I doubt that will be about the virus. I'm pretty sure that'll be about American race relations. And it'll be a tough pill to swallow. Because Kendi is a 21st century racist. I mean, just an unapologetic racist. All white people are bad. There are plenty of things that white people can't do just because of their skin color. And you know, and on right down the line, I didn't write this article for white people. I don't want white people to read it. No white people need apply, that sort of thing. This fountain is not for white people. You don't have to think very hard to extend that kind of, no pun intended, black and white racism everywhere it's ever gone. And, you know, because it's 2020, there's no possibility of pointing out to this author or any of the other opportunistic 21st century moral outrage zillennials that two wrongs don't make a right. There's no point in pointing out to this author that if you make invidious distinctions on the basis of skin color, you are a racist, no matter what the skin color is. There's no point in making that. I'm sure, 100% sure, I don't know this author at all. I've only read a part of his famous book. I haven't read this article. I don't follow him on social media. I don't know anything about his opinions, but I am 100% sure, 100%, that if you asked him, he would say, he would be in the crowd of people who say it's not possible to be racist towards white people. and again, if you're old enough or remember the 1960s, you'd say, once upon a time, in the living memory of a whole bunch of people who are still alive in America today, the part of the sentence that you're finishing with white people would have been finished with black people. It would have been a whole bunch of people in the American Deep South saying, well, it's not possible to be racist to black people. Would have been the kind version of how they finished that sentence. You could point this guy until you're blue in the face. It wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter at all. But this also, the Atlantic also has book coverage, and I will read all these articles. I'll even read Kendi's. It might be that he will surprise me. It might be that he's writing about the virus after all. But while I was at the store, I also found this, which was greatly appreciated by me. This is a September-October issue of Asimovs, square-bound science fiction periodical. I haven't got an Asimovs or an analog since March. I've been reading lots and lots of science fiction short stories, and one of you sent me a whole collection of older square-bound science fiction periodicals, but I haven't bought a new issue for months and months and months, almost a year. So I was overjoyed to see this. This Barnes & Noble they have the new Asimovs. They don't have the new analog. And quite a few of the other magazines in the magazine section haven't been swapped out in half a year. Which is kind of disgraceful, but I'm so happy to have this. And they're leading with Robert Reed. And I don't know if that is just coincidence. Maybe this is the strongest story. His usually are. Or if they're leading with the strongest stuff, whether he's known or not. Robert Reed is a rare breed in science fiction. He publishes short stories, and they are all terrific. You will never go wrong with a Robert Reed short story, and yet he's not known at all. His name is completely not known. Who else is in here? Leah Cypress, Rich Larson, Christine Catherine Rush, Ian Tregellis, Jason Sanford, Caldwell Turnbull. Okay, aside from Rush, I don't recognize any of those names. Maybe he was the biggest name for this issue. I have no idea. But I'm going to gobble it up. And while I was at the bookstore, I also got a couple of books. And I was just feeling sorry for myself. I wanted to indulge myself. So I got two of these. They're reprints, and they're quite lovely. They're an author that I haven't read in 20 years. And the author is Alistair Reynolds. I really remember really liking his stuff. And I guess Orbit is coming out with these gorgeous trade paperbacks. I got Century Rain and Chasm City. Chasm City I remember very well. Century Rain not so much, but look at how pretty these things are. So I just got these two, and I think there are others. I think Orbit makes other reprints in this series. They're big, hefty trade paperbacks. So that's nice. I'll put these on the same shelf with The Rift and new reprints of Dune and whatnot. And I might even, I will read Chasm City. I vaguely remember. There's the Bean making an appearance. That's another bit of stuff for this Megastuff video, is that her little house, one of you sent her a little house that's actually adorable, but she is so far having no interest in going anywhere near it. Certainly not going in it. I have led her inside it and sort of pushed down on her tushy so that she was sitting inside it. So she knows what it is. She knows what it's for. She knows it's nice and soft in there. She knows she can lay down in there. And she knows that I want her to do that, or to feel comfortable doing that. But like virtually every other dog I've ever had, she has no interest in spending any time away from me. None whatsoever. Just, I mean, I know that it's probably a lot of owners. Their dogs probably like spending a little time away from them, but not this one. Not my dogs. Not ever. They just. I mean, I've had beagles who were extremely standoffish in terms of PDA, in terms of public displays of affection, but they still didn't want to be anywhere away from me. They didn't. I would often get them little houses, little dens, or I'd make them for them, and they had no interest whatsoever. Had to be relatively close or touching. Frida likes to be relatively close, her body length away, or touching, pressed against me, leaning against me. She doesn't necessarily want me to be petting her all that time. In fact, sometimes I'll get a long-suffering look if I want to snuggle with her. But she wants to be right next to me. So I don't know that she'll ever occupy that thing. But anyway, I remember enough of Chasm City so that I might wait on this. I'm going to read Century Rain right away. I'm going to read it this weekend. I'm sure that I've read it already, but I wonder how long it'll take. So I got these two things. Very pretty. I didn't see any of the others, but I gather that that Orbit is reprinting everything. Of course, you know what I'm going to say next, right? I have the book reviewer instinct to email Orbit and see if maybe they would be willing to cough up the others, or all of them, in a set. I might still do that, but it was nice to buy books in a bookstore. That was a nice feeling. I was, of course, looking for mass market paperbacks, but there wasn't anything I saw that was new. I had to go to the new trade paperback table for that, and these things are new reprints. These things came out 20 years ago, I believe. Century Rain was published in 2004, and Chasm City, I think, is even older than that. Yeah, 2001. So I'm racking my brains all the way back here. I was racking my brains trying to remember what the original American covers to these things would have looked like. I think I remember a couple of them. And if I remember correctly, they weren't appealing. They were metal spaceships. Close-up details of metal spaceships. They're kind of boring covers. If I remember correctly. I'll have to ask Mark Richardson about that. Maybe he has them. But these are lovely. So I grabbed those, and when I got back, there was a package in the mail. So we'll wrap up this Megastuff video with a package. Just one. I don't know if there's any on the mail today, but we'll see what this is. And this is from... oh, hi, baby. And do you want a package? No. Or do you want to see your fan? No. Oh. This is from Amazon. So one of you may have sent me something. We're firmly in the area where I can go and get books of my own. So the edict of not sending me a book should definitely apply here. You shouldn't send me a book, no matter what, unless it's an ebook. You can send me as many ebooks as you want. But even so, even though that edict is in place, you may have noticed, if you're watching this channel regularly, that it's hardly a video now. I won't get all teary-eyed about this, I promise, but it's hardly a video that goes by anymore without me opening a present from somebody. And that, I want to point out, is not how this is supposed to work. It's just weird. It's weird and incredibly touching that you people are sending me and Frida presents of all kinds. That there's hardly a video that goes by when I don't open something that somebody just decided to give me. And I don't understand that. You people are doing me the favor of letting me chat with you every day. You're doing me the favor of doing that. A huge number of you are doing that favor. You don't need to do anything more than that. You really don't. But okay, we'll see. All right, well, this is what I mean. Okay. All right. Okay. How wonderful. Okay, the other day, I did a Penguin video on Martin Luther, the pig, Martin Luther. I hate him. He's one of the few figures in history that I do hate. There's nothing that I think is positive about him in terms of either his personality or his pronouncements or his writings. It was after that video was over that I suddenly realized that a lot of you might be Lutherans or Protestants, and that you might not like that you might think I was attacking your faith instead of criticizing its founder. And I was dead wrong. And I mentioned this. I was dead wrong. I've got tons and tons of emails and tons of comments, and they're all the same. We just get it. It's like I've mentioned a couple of times in this channel. In this little corner of BookTube, we just get it. And I don't know why, but I got to tell you, it's spoiling me for the rest of the world. In this little corner of BookTube, we understand that we can have knockdown, drag-out, absolutely hilarious arguments about all kinds of things without imperiling anything, without imperiling friendship. We trust and like each other on this little corner of BookTube anyway, even though we violently disagree. I think it's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And this is a perfect case in point. In that video, I mentioned that one of a great biography of Martin Luther, or maybe it wasn't that video, maybe it was an earlier one, was by Roland Bainton. It was called Here I Stand, and it's a terrific biography, the best, I think, biography of Martin Luther that's ever been done. And one of you sent me Here I Stand by Roland Bainton. I mentioned in that video, or whatever video it was, that I don't have a copy of this, and now I do. Beautiful, rock-solid trade paperback. One of you watched that video, heard me say that I don't have a copy, and just got one for me. That is just so... that is just so strange. That is so wonderful. So whoever this was, thank you. Thank you very much. I think at the very least I can do, given the feathers I ruffled with that Penguin video, is to reread this with an open mind. Not just for Bainton I love. I don't need an open mind for his writing. But for Martin Luther. Maybe I'll give that a try. I will certainly reread this and do it soon, because I haven't read this in forever. And I can't thank you enough, whoever you are. I can't thank you enough for sending this. So that is the bookish day. 2 new Alistair Reynolds, and Here I Stand by Roland Bainton. And then we have 2 magazines, Asimovs Science Fiction and The New Atlantic. One piece in The New Atlantic is all about how the virus won in America. How it won. Going to be grim reading. Of course, we already know the answer because it was weaponized for political reasons. It became a partisan issue. Imagine a nation's responses to a medical problem suddenly becoming an item in the culture war. Do you wear a mask or don't you? Just imagine. It reinforces my belief that at any point in America's history before now, if we had had to enact serious health-saving legislation, the groundbreaking restrictions on pollution, so that you can see the buildings in New York City and Chicago instead of them being swathed in smog. The legislation that stopped big tobacco from advertising addictive and lethal drugs on TV, or by extension on the internet. Seatbelts. I firmly believe that if America had had the legislative dialogue back then, if the legislative dialogue about those common sense things had happened now, none of them would have happened. And I'm amazed they haven't all been overturned in this absolutely rabid period that we're in, where every single thing, I once thought there were lines there, I thought it was most things, but not everything, but where every single thing is tribalized. Everything. Including a virus that couldn't care less who you like or vote for. Couldn't care less. Just astounds me. Just astonishes me. And I should have seen it coming, because the reaction of so many people in this country towards common sense safety measures when it comes to a potentially lethal virus was presaged by the massive movements in California and elsewhere in the Deep South against vaccination. Against ordinary vaccination, against ordinary diseases. Once I saw years ago that movement was gaining such enormous strength and vocal nature, I should have known that something like this would be possible. That something much more serious would come along and people would just... I have a feeling that I think that is the basic reason why the virus won. But I'll be interested to see what Ed Young says about it. I'll read the whole issue. I'll read every bit of it, and I'll read it with an open mind. so that's my bookish adventures for today, plus the Bean. The Bean is part of the renting collapse in 2020. She is not interested in her new home. And a little Bean story. She met a little buddy. She met a dog even smaller than she is, half her size. But that's it for your mega stuff for today. I'll hopefully have more to report on many fronts tomorrow. And if I forget, I want you to remind me, especially you lazy writers out there, that there ought to be writing updates here as well, or separate videos about writing. September is right around the corner. We're almost there. Meaning that NaNoWriMo, which is a big deal, it is a huge thing to do, 1,667 words a day for a whole month. And despite what any NaNoWriMo savants would tell you, you can't take days off. It's lethal. to do. So you have to hit that word count. Roughly 2,000 words every day. Last NaNoWriMo, in November, I did 2,000 words a day, specifically for the round number, specifically to give myself a nice cushion. I kept telling myself later in the month you might get distracted, but I never did, so I just kept it up. But we gotta start thinking about that. We have to start thinking about NaNoWriMo. November might seem a long way off, but it's really not. But anyway, we'll do a whole nother mega stuff the next time I accumulate enough stuff to mega on you. And until then, thank you, BookTube, and thank you, whoever you are, for sending Here I Stand. That was very nice. I will wrap this up for now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.